Oh, hi there, everybody. Welcome to Kenneth Burke's cocktail party. I'm just hanging out. I thought I'd introduce you to Douglas Mao and explore what he's talking about. So, next 5 minutes, I'm going to try to answer these three questions very briefly. What's being said? With whom is Mao in conversation? And should we stick around for the rest of the conversation? So, let's start with what's being said in Mao's conversation, Mao's essay. I've chunked it in the way I have. You could probably do it differently, but I think chunking is a great way to explore and map an essay. So, in paragraphs 1 to 6, Mao explores the beach scene with Boy Blue and Trumper, and they're telling stories and discussing the philosophical implications of those stories. Mao makes some good connections between these stories and the larger themes of the book and Lamming's life specifically. Paragraphs 7 to 13, Mao introduces the terms philosopher kid and scholarship boy, and these are super important for the whole essay. He's setting up a lot of these ideas in the first part of the essay, and these first 19 paragraphs, and then the second half of the essay, the next 21 paragraphs, he really brings these ideas to fruition by applying them to Lamming's work. So anyways, the philosopher kid is a figure found in some other modernist texts, such as I Lay Dying, Faulkner's work, who is this philosopher kid is an outside child figure who experiences a problem with modernism and modern culture from this naive perspective. Scholarship boy is a term describing working class or colonial kids offered education that puts them in the same kind of liminal position G is in between his village and his school, if we remember that from Castle. But this position is necessary to enter the wider world, this break from the previously known world, this figurative death, as he talks about later. In paragraphs 14 and 19, Mao discusses Lamming as a scholarship boy and how Lamming and his fellow Windrush writers positioned themselves and were positioned by the establishment as modernist writers. So those are all the ideas he sets up in the first half of the essay. In the second half of the essay, specifically paragraphs 20 to 26, Mao explores how Castle fits in the model, the anti-development model, the anti-building roman, found in some global modernisms. Castle, Mao argues, is not a repudiation of the building's traditionally, not a total repudiation of the building's traditionally progressive ideology, such as in Great Expectations, nor is it a purely anti-Bildung, such as I Lay Dying. In paragraphs 27 to 32, Mao introduces Orlando Patterson's super influential concept of social death, which I don't have time to totally unpack here. For Lamming, social death is linked to the separation from village life, the fate of the scholarship boy. And he writes, or Mao writes, he's arguing about Lamming here. This is a really juicy quote I had to use. If the social death of the scholarship boy is a more pronounced version of the social death of any schoolboy in Lamming's Barbados, the schoolboy's social death is in turn only a more pronounced version of that of any colonial subject. So there's kind of a gradation, a progression of social deaths happening in Lamming's work. However, for a Caribbean writer in Lamming's era, this extra layer of social death was necessary, as England was the only place where writers could practice, as Lamming did. In paragraphs 33 to 40, Mao ties this triple exile idea, this triple social death idea, back to modernism. Modernism's, quote, openness to the formerly disruptive, end quote, allowed Lamming to experiment with new forms of representation, and this complexity refuses progressive models of the project of national consolidation and the uncomplicated celebration of post-colonial states, right? So it's not totally on board with just celebrating that post-colonial world. There's a great final paragraph in this where Mao ties together a lot of the strands he's been developing in this essay. He writes, as Castle seems to forecast, successful nationhood proves difficult because the general enfranchisement is not well served by institutions inherited from the colonial years. Institutions whose work is to sever from origins, to engender a break between rulers and ruled that is at once analogous to and pragmatically of a piece with the break between philosopher kid and scholarship boy. So you can see how he ties those terms back and uses them to talk about this much larger matter. So, with whom is Mao in conversation? He uses Jet Etsy's Unseizable Youth, Modernism, Colonialism, and the Fiction of Development a lot. He relies a lot on Simon Gikandi, and of course, Orlando Patterson. There's some others, but these are where he's getting his main ideas from. And then, should we stick around for the conversation? Absolutely. Mao provides a great insight into why and how Lamming uses the modernist form. He also unpacks the ambivalent relationship G and Lamming has with the village. As we saw, it's at once a kind of idealized Edenic space and yet a time and place that must be left behind. The combination of Patterson's concept of social death and the philosopher kid's scholarship boy model of the Bildungsroman Lamming uses offers a useful way for us to think about what Lamming is saying in this novel. Finally, Mao's connection between this individual narrative of maturation and the national narrative helps us understand Castle and the rest of Lamming's work in this post-colonial lens. And that's it. Thank you very much.